Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the meeting of the Nithsdale Divisional Licensing Board in January. This meeting is being recorded and live streamed. Could I remind members to follow the good practice guidance, which includes muting microphones and switching off their video when you are not addressing the meeting. Should you wish to contribute to any item, you should write "speak" in the Teams chat function or raise your virtual hand and you will be invited to speak in order. Should your question or issue be raised by a previous speaker, please withdraw your request so that we deal with the business as efficiently as possible. Ms. Traynor, could I ask you to take us through the Southern apologies, and I approve members' remote participation.
Thank you, Convener. We have apologies from Councillor Dempster.
Do we have any declarations of interest? I don't see any hands going up. Move on to item 3, minute of conjoined board meeting of 19th of November 2021. Could I ask maybe Councillor McKee, Councillor Murray or Councillor Stitt if they're willing to move and approve this?
Agreed. Second.
Thank you for that, folks. Now move on to item 4, minute of meeting 1st of December 2021. Can we take this as a correct record?
Agreed. Agreed.
Thanks. Item 5, Licensing Scotland Act 2005, Section 56 and 68, applications for occasional licences and extended hours granted under delegated authority. It's here for noting. Any questions? See any hands going up? Can we take this as noted?
Noted. Okay.
Move on to item 6, Licensing Scotland Act 2005, application for minor variations granted under delegated authority. It's here for noting. Are we happy to note this report?
Noted. Okay.
Right. Item 7, Licensing Scotland Act 2005, application for transfer of premises licence granted under delegated authority. It's here for noting. Happy to note.
Good.
Happy to note.
Thank you. And item 8, Ms. Traynor, this one's the gambling or surrender of a premises licence.
That's just for noting, Convener. Thank you.
Are we happy to note this?
Noted.
Happy to note.
Thank you. Move on to item 9. Licensing Act 2005, application for variation of premises licence, Greens, St Michael Street, Dumfries. Ms. Traynor, would you like to take us through the report?
Yes, thank you, Convener. I just want to ensure that we do have the applicant with us and that he can hear me. Campbell Dorward, are you present with us?
Yes, Your Honours, I'm here. Thank you.
Thank you. And also we have an objection submitted by Miss Anna Fodden. Miss Fodden, can you hear me? Are you with us? I understand that Miss Fodden's attending by telephone. I'll just ask that question again. Miss Anna Fodden, can you hear me? Are you with us? Okay, so members, this is an application for a major variation in respect of Greens at St Michael Street in Dumfries. The application was received on the 8th of December 2021 and the board has gone through the statutory consultation procedure. The notice was advertised on the board's website from Friday the 17th of December 2021 to Saturday the 8th of January 2021. The site notice was also displayed at the premises throughout that period, and I can confirm that a signed confirmation of site notice confirming display has been received. In terms of objections and responses, representations, I beg your pardon, there is one objection that has been received from Ms Anna Fodden, and that is at Appendix 2. The request itself is at Appendix 1. In terms of responses received, the LSO has advised no adverse comment, and his report may be found at Appendix 3, and the police have no objections and there are no other adverse comments. So in terms of procedure, convener, with your consent, I would suggest you hear from the police, then you hear from the LSO to speak to his report and any questions. You allow the objector, Anna Fodden, if she is present with us, to present her objection via telephone, failing which you just read and digest and consider the terms of her objection and possible questions if that's relevant. And thereafter you hear from the applicant, Mr Campbell Dorward, followed by questions from members if there are any, and then allow the applicant, Mr Campbell Dorward, to sum up his case and go into session. Thank you.
Councillor Murray.
Just to say that there are a couple of people joined by phone who are muted at the moment. I just wonder whether Ms Fodden's one of those.
I would think if one of them is Miss Fodden, she would know how to unmute and she would let herself know at the appropriate time. I will ask the police to speak to their report, then the licensing officer, then I will call on Miss Fodden. So, Sergeant McKee, have you anything to add to your report?
Thank you. No, there's no police objections.
Mr Collins, anything you wish to add to your report?
Good morning, convener. No, nothing further to add to my original report. Thank you.
Any questions from members for either the police or Mr Collins? Don't see any hands going up. Oh, Councillor McKee.
Just one, I don't know the right folk to ask, but it's a concern over the objection from Miss Fodden about noise and that sort of thing. Is there anything that we can do to ensure outside noise is restricted after a certain hour? That's a kind of concern I've got, and you've got residential properties in that area as well. I'm quite surprised they haven't objected. But just is there anything we could do to maybe restrict hours of noise, if you like?
Ms Traynor, would you like to?
Okay, so Councillor McKee, what I can say is that this objection is alleging noise, etc. We did ask our environmental health colleagues whether any noise complaints have been received to substantiate the matters raised, and I can confirm that Environmental Health have said they have had no noise complaints in relation to these premises, and no noise complaints have been submitted to them by Ms Fodden. And of course the board moves forward on an evidence-based approach. What I will say is in relation to the outside drinking facilities being required, of course you will be allowing the applicant to speak to his application, and there is a request for outside drinking facilities out with core hours. Now, out with core hours would clearly be before commencement of the trading day and also following the terminal hour. And it may be the case that allowing the premises to trade in their outside drinking area out with core hours could be perhaps just prior to the trading, so the morning trading commences at 11 o'clock each day. So, and I understand, of course, this is for the applicant to be able to state his case that he wants to move to a more family-friendly premises whereby he can have breakfasts from 8 in the morning. So it may be the case you give consideration to the request for outside drinking, which is currently in place already, but before the commencement of the trading day, rather than allowing it to continue after the terminal hour, which on a Thursday, Friday, Saturday night is 1 in the morning. But I can confirm also, convener, that the licensing board has received no complaints that I am aware of in relation to the trading of these premises, which I understand at the moment are currently closed anyway. Thank you.
Thanks for that. Thanks, Chair.
Has Miss Foden joined the meeting? And if so, it's her opportunity to address the committee.
Something up there about asking Miss Foden to rejoin the meeting.
Caroline?
Sorry, convener, I can see I was just going to actually ask Cheryl Simer, Senior Licensing Officer, to comment as to, because she might be aware of whose phone number is which, and I can see she's got her hand up, so you may wish to hear from Cheryl Simer on this matter. Thank you.
Hi, Miss Foden is, she has joined the meeting by telephone, and, oh wait, has the telephone just disappeared? She was in the meeting and she was sitting on mute. I noticed one of the telephones have just disappeared. I don't know what, do you want me to try and phone her? She certainly was there.
I have two telephones on my screen.
Oh, wow.
Yes,
one that begins 07972 and one that's 07729.
Yes. So one of them numbers is Miss Foden's. If we can ask that she takes it off mute. I don't know what else to do at this point.
Miss Foden, if you're able to do this, could you take your phone off mute and then you'll be able to join the meeting? If not, another way might be to hang up and rejoin the meeting, and then you might be able to get in easier that way.
Anna Foden
is now exiting.
Give Miss Foden a minute or two to try and rejoin.
Anna Foden.
Hello, Miss Foden.
Hello.
Is now
can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I am so hopeless with technology. I really am. I do apologise because I realise I'm holding up the meeting.
It's no problem.
I've been listening. I've been able to hear you, but I obviously was on mute and I didn't know how to get myself off mute anyway. So I'm so sorry. My concern, I wasn't really that bothered about the morning times, to be fair. It was later on in the day. It was the evening. It's the noise level and the bad. I mean, this may be a very well-run pub that they're going to have. I don't know, but I'm right next door. Right next door. I come out of my door and I look straight onto the outside area because I'm in a flat. So I hear everything that's going on. As I said in my objection, you know, I can't open my back windows at all because of the noise at times in the outside area. And you know, as the evening goes on, it can get louder. I don't even mind so much music, to be fair. It's just the noise and the laughter, and it's just really, really noisy. And sometimes, as I say, the behaviour can be really bad. It can really, really be bad. I've put up with it for years because, well, I understand I'm beside a premises, and that pub's been there a long, long time. But, you know, it's, I'm so sorry. Johnny, you'll have to post that, darling. Please. Oh, no. I'm sorry, my son's just come into the room. Johnny, yeah, I know you need to do it. Please, Johnny, can you just go? Just go and post the letter. Well, I'm on the list. I really need to speak here. Please just go down. I'm sorry, my son has autism, and it can be very difficult if he wants to speak to me. So that really was my objection. It's really the evening. I kind of thought if the extended hours and they're going to be out drinking in the garden, it can be really noisy. That was it. I was also a bit concerned about children as well, being in the pub to all hours as well. And you know, if children are left unattended and they're just running about all over the place, that was another thing. But
right, yeah. If you hold on just now, I'll see if there are any members who would like to ask any questions. Councillor Stitt.
Yes.
Sorry.
I'd like to ask Miss Foden about the music noise. You say you're not bothered with it, but I know years gone by, you used to have certain, was it decibels for music?
That's right, yes. Yeah.
And if it's that loud, it should be, if you've got decibel working in the pub, it should cut the music off if it's that loud. I'm just wondering if it is really that bad.
Yeah, well, it can. I mean, it can be. The thing is, I actually have never objected. I know other people have objected in the streets to noise, but as I say, I have never objected to it.
That's fine, either.
Are there any other questions for Miss Foden? I don't see any hands going up. Now ask Mr. Dorward if he would like to address the committee on his application.
Thank you, Your Honours. Your Honours, this partly came about through a change of tenant and also because of trying to operate during some of the COVID restrictions. So to be quite honest, it's a refresh of the licence, and when I performed some due diligence, I realised that we had a commercial kitchen, but we did not have permission to serve food. And that's where the application has come from. And through the good guidance of the licensing board, we tried to trade outside with drink only during some of the particular restrictions, and were advised that this was inappropriate, to which we adhered immediately. So that's really the background as to why we were coming forward. And because we're making one request to the board, we chose to try and update the licence. But everything we have asked for is within board policy, is my understanding. With regard to the licensing trading hours as well, that there is no request at all to increase drinking hours externally or internally. All we have asked is that we could perform some activities out with core hours, which might mean people would have a breakfast outside. And to be honest, that would be very dependent on the operator. It's quite possible no one would do food at breakfast time, but we're just asking for the permission to be able to do that. I certainly do not see people using the external area beyond what would be the current licensing hours. So, I'd like to give my reassurance to the board and to Mrs. Foden with regard to that point. I've covered the area for 4 years, and I've checked in with one of my colleagues who covered for 2.5. I'm not aware of a single objection with regard to greens. And I checked in with the previous operators, Mr. Alan Hulliston and Susan, who I believe operated the pub for certainly over 10 years, possibly over 15. And with the exception of the table incident, they're not aware of any objections, etc. So I do believe the place has been run fairly, and I do believe it has been run with consideration to neighbours. Thank you, Your Honours.
With regard to the activities out with core hours, would you be willing to just have prior to core hours, so that you're looking at maybe from 8 o'clock in the morning for your breakfast through to opening time, rather than having full out with core hours, which means you could be outside later on in the day, sort of thing? Would that be acceptable to you?
Yes, Your Honour.
Councillor Stitt.
Yes, Ivor. Just on Appendix 3, Mr. Dorward, item 7 is on about conference facilities, restaurant and dance facilities. They have dance facilities is present, because I'm thinking if they have dance facilities, is that just to jukebox music or to live bands? Or is it other types of dance facilities? Because if it's got to be live bands, it's got to be a lot louder as what disco music would coming off a jukebox or something. Just to get some reference on it.
It's as per the history. To be honest, there have been live bands. There has been discos. There have been DJs. So that we're just, as I say, it was a refresh to the license to make just to ensure that we're adhering completely with board policy on the operating plan.
That's fine, thanks.
Councillor Murray.
It was just to take up Ms Fodden's concern about children and young people. The way I'd read the application, that children would have to be accompanied by a responsible adult at all times, and young people would have to be accompanied by a responsible adult after 10 o'clock. Just can you confirm that it's not the case that young kids will be running around unaccompanied in the pub, and that they would be, a responsible person would have to be in control of youngsters if they were in the pub?
Sorry, is this for myself? Yeah, absolutely. That is my understanding, that any child having access must be accompanied. It would be absolute exception, I would think, that someone would go beyond the standard hours in terms of a particular function. It's highly unlikely. As you'll recall, Your Honours, kids' licences used to be till 8 o'clock, but I think licensed premises are trying to be more European, and when we do have visitors from Europe, they tend to eat slightly later. So it's just asking for some flexibility there. However, that will be influenced by the operator. The operator may choose not to have children beyond 8 o'clock.
Thank you for that. If there are no further questions, see anyone? Well, summing up by Sergeant McKee, anything to add?
No, there's nothing to add from you, please.
Mr. Collins, anything you wish to add?
Nothing further, Convener, thank you.
Ms. Foden, is there anything you wish to add after hearing the presentation? It's just your sort of summing up part.
No, I'm quite happy with things. I'd actually quite like to meet the people that are going to take over. Actually, it would be quite nice to meet them actually and have a chat, if that would be okay.
I'm sure Mr. Okay? Dorward will facilitate that if he can.
Yeah.
And Mr. Dorward, have you anything you want to add to or sum up your application at this time?
No, Your Honours, I thank you for the opportunity and just seek you to grant, please. Thank you.
Over to members. Members minded to approve this application? Councillor Murray?
Yeah, I'm minded to approve it.
Quite happy to second, Chair.
Councillor Lever?
And just to make or to remind Ms. Foden that she does have the opportunity to make complaints to the environmental health officers if any problems do arise in the future.
I'm happy with it.
I think all members are agreed to approve this application, and hopefully when the new tenants arrive, Ms. Foden has the opportunity to meet with them. Ms. Traynor, would you like to sum up the decision?
Yes, of course, Convener. So
Anna Foden.
So Mr. Dorward, your application has been granted by the board today. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honours.
Right, we'll move on to item 10, occasional licences, Hitching Post, Eastfield Road, Dumfries, continuous use of occasional licences, update on new premises licence application. Ms. Traynor.
Thank you, Convener. Can I just check in the first instance that we have the applicant Lee Dawes with us and that Lee Dawes can hear me, please? I understand that Lee Dawes was going to be joining us today via telephone. Cheryl, are you aware whether Lee Dawes is with us?
Yes, he's sitting. He's sitting as accepted, and he's sitting on mute at the moment.
Mr. Dawes, are you able to unmute your phone and let us know if you're still here?
Lee Dawes
is now exiting.
Take it he's maybe seen the bit in the chat from Mr. Sweetman. Leave and come back, it seems to work better.
Lee Dawes
is now joining.
Hi there, I am on the call.
Yeah, we can hear you now, Mr. Dawes. Right.
Yeah, so I don't know what I missed there. However, one thing I want to say to start off with was
Mr. Dawes, if you just hold on, we'll go through the report like we did the last time, and you always have the right to speak at the end. So
no worries.
I've not proceeded with any of the report yet, so we'll just start and then we'll call you in at the appropriate time.
Yep.
That's okay. Ms. Traynor, would you like to take us through the report?
Thank you, Convener. So this is an application for a further series of occasional licences in respect of the Hitching Post premises at Eastfield Road in Dumfries, and we have the applicant Lee Dawes with us today, and he is a personal licence holder. So you'll be aware that most applications for occasional licences, which have that 14-day maximum shelf period, are granted via delegated authority. In terms of your policy statement, paragraph 1.6.37, it states that where repeated applications for occasional licences for the same unlicensed premises are received and which are not for detailed specific events and or for activities that have been occurring on the premises regularly over a period of at least 3 months, they'll generally not be suitable for grant via delegated authority and will be determined by yourself. So in relation to these premises, I can confirm that 26 applications have been granted via delegated authority, and a list of these applications are detailed at Appendix 1, and you're being asked to consider a further 11 applications, and these are detailed at Appendix 2. If you note at paragraph 2.3.1 of the report, it does state the dates for these 11 occasional licence requests that are before yourselves today, and the requests run from the 31st of January 2022 to the end date of the 3rd of July 2022. So you may, Convener, wish to know what the position is from the applicant in relation to any plan to submit a premises licence application. In terms of procedure, I would suggest that you hear from the police and then maybe the LSO, and then the applicant speak to why he can continually keeps on submitting applications for occasional licences. Thereafter, possible questions from members, and then of course give the applicant an opportunity to sum up and be heard. Thank you.
Right, well, Sergeant McKee, have you anything to add to the report?
Thank you, Convener. No, there's nothing further from Police Scotland.
Mr. Collins, is there anything you would like to add?
I think the only thing I would throw in, Convener, is that Mr. Dawes was unfortunate. He opened his business a short time before the pandemic arrived on us, and as a result of that, he's had to close and open repeatedly in line with Scottish Government advice and guidance, and I think that's held up a lot of his plans. The only other thing I would say is he has been running on occasional licences for some time, but we've had no issues, problems or concerns with the manner in which the business has been running. And that's it.
Thank you for that, Mr. Collins. Mr. Dawes, would you like to speak to your application and maybe address the board on the reasons why you're using occasional licence applications rather than a full premises one?
Yeah, certainly. So obviously we bought the premises back in August 2020 of the understanding that it was a licensed premises. However, I understand that the premises licence was actually surrendered in, I think, the January or February of that year. Therefore, it became a bit of a surprise to us, hence why we then started with occasional licences as opposed to premises licence, because it was a matter of weeks before we opened that we were able to ascertain that there was actually no premises licence. However, I have been in contact with the council on a number of occasions asking for a copy of the planning certificate, of the building warrant, etc. Not only to save obviously the business money, as LSO said, we started operating actually during COVID-19, which I know is a risk that we take on ourselves. However, on every approach I've made to the council, they have informed me that there is no planning certificate or building warrant for the premises. Now, I've tried to speak to a number of people regarding this, because in my eyes there must be a building warrant, a planning certificate, etc. Due to the building having had previously, and only 6 months prior to our takeover, having had the premises licence. And it's not a case of I don't want to get new reports, but for me, I don't see why there'd be a need for new reports whilst there are already reports for the same building, which hasn't changed. We have changed internally in terms of decoration. However, exit doors, fire exits, etc., are all still the same. So for me, it's not that we've not been willing to put forward a full premises application. We have tried on a number of occasions to work with the council to gather the details that are required to submit with the premises licence. However, the council haven't been very forthcoming, nor have they been particularly helpful by saying they don't have the information, which, as I'm sure you'll agree, the information must be there to have granted the premises licence in the first place. Like I said, I understand that was then surrendered, but the information in the reports must still be either live or archived somewhere. I was never able to get a straight answer of whether I would be required to get new ones, or if somebody would attempt and make an effort to try and source the existing so that we could use them. Like I say, there's been no change to the building in terms of layout. It is all modification and decoration work that has taken place.
Right, yeah. Is there any questions from members for Mr. Dawes? I don't see any hands going up. Right. I take it Sergeant McKee and Mr. Trainer have nothing further to add in their summing up. Mr. Dawes, would you like to just final sum up on your application? Oh, Councillor McKee.
Sorry, Chair. It just occurred to me: has the applicant got an application in for a full licence, or has he been advised otherwise? Whatever's going on, because it's a continuing problem here we've got here, and it needs to be addressed.
Mr. Dawes, could you tell us whether you've applied for a premises licence, or have you been advised that you need the documents that you've mentioned?
Yeah, so the last update from the licensing board, which I think was the start of January, when we submitted the latest run of occasional licences, was the guidance at that point that yes, we would have to submit a full premises licence. However, on that, I am still waiting for correspondence from the council as to the reports, because I can't get any clarity whether somebody is going to look for the building certificate and the planning certificate, which the council will already possess, or whether I have to get new reports generated. Now, I'm happy to get new reports generated, although looking towards the council for a bit of support, being a new business trading during COVID, hopefully that the council can help us out a little bit and actually produce the report that they already have for the building that we're applying for that premises licence. I would also just like to add that the occasional licences that we currently applied for, which run from end of January up until I think it was April, they would then be taken back if obviously we then got the full premises licence. But it's, in my eyes, it's down to the council. I'm waiting on their response as to whether we're going to get the planning certificate and the building warrant, which they already possess for the previous premises licence.
Right, Miss Traynor, you wish to come in?
Yeah, thank you, convener. So from what Mr. Dawes is saying, my understanding is that the issue seems to be, and please correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Dawes, is that he wants to submit a full application for a premises licence. As you're aware, he needs his Section 50 certificates, his food hygiene, his planning and his building, and it seems that for whatever reason to date he's been unsuccessful. So it was just to say, convener, that if it's to assist, I'm very happy either for myself or a member of the team to contact our planning and building standards and environmental health colleagues and draw it to their attention that Mr. Dawes has raised this issue today, that he is trying to ascertain from them whether he needs new Section 50s or whether he can alternatively use the ones that were in place, and just to see, to assist Mr. Dawes to see if we could kind of speed things along for him, given that he is saying that he is a new business and he does want to get up and running, and he's before yourselves today because he's advising that our regulatory colleagues in the council, for whatever reason, don't. As he's alleging, don't seem to be assisting him. So I'm happy to raise that if it's a help.
Right. I think that would be helpful. Councillor McKee?
If you didn't mind, Chair, I think that would be helpful. And no making excuses, but given what the council's been through in the last couple of years and everybody else has been through with this COVID carry on, it may be there's not been people in the office to do that research. But it'd be helpful if Caroline could take that up. That would be great.
No,
thanks,
that's
Chair.
Absolutely. Thanks.
Right. With that, Mr. Dawes, do you wish to sum up?
Yeah, so the help from colleagues in the council would obviously be beneficial to ourselves, and we'd like to accept that because it's a lot. It would be a lot more feasible for us to have a full premises licence rather than having to rely on occasional licences. There is an application sitting with operating plan, etc., all complete, which I actually spoke to LSO on during one of the lockdowns. It is all complete and waiting to be submitted. However, the only thing at the moment preventing me from submitting it is the planning certificate and the building warrant, which, as I've already said, I'm waiting on the council coming back to me as to whether I have to get new ones or whether it's acceptable to use the ones which have previously been used for premises licence applications.
Right, thank you for that. We'll now move into session. Members, you've heard the reasoning behind the request for occasional licences. Are we happy to approve these licences?
Happy to approve. Given what we've heard for Caroline and that, I'd be happy to support the application.
Councillor Murray?
Similarly, I'm happy to support it because it does really look as if it's the council that's at fault here rather than the applicant. So, I would encourage Caroline to try and speed this along. That it's certainly not satisfactory that somebody's obliged to keep on applying for occasional licences when they would actually want to do things properly, and it's actually because the council's not able to reduce the goods for them that they're not able to do it.
Councillor Lever?
Yeah, happy to approve. So we appreciate any help to facilitate the full application.
Caroline, would it be possible maybe to look back at old applications for this building and maybe if we could find the building warrant number for it that we've used in the past, if it's there, or it's maybe something we don't hold on to after a certain amount of time, but if it was there that we could maybe give that number to the building control team, might be able to actually speed along some of the inquiries if that was an opportunity. Other than that, Caroline, would you like to sum up the decision of the board?
Yes, of course, convener. Thank you. So, Mr. Dawes, your 11 applications for occasional licences dating from the 31st of January 2022 up to and including the 3rd of July 2022 have all been granted by the board today. Thank you.
All right. Thank you for that, Mr. Dawes. Move on to item 11. A Licence Scotland application for a personal licence, Carol Fleming. Ms. Traynor.
Thank you, convener. So I believe that we do have Carol Fleming with us today.
Is now exiting.
I do believe that we have Carol Fleming with us today. Convener, just checking. Carol Fleming, can you hear me? Are you present?
Yes.
Thank
Yes.
you. Thank you for that confirmation. So, members, this is an application for a personal licence, which authorises the licence holder to supervise or authorise the sale of alcohol. The applicant is Carol Fleming, who you've just heard is here with us today. In relation to Ms Fleming's application, the Chief Constable has confirmed a relevant offence, and the Chief Constable's notice in this regard may be found at Appendix 1 to the report. So after hearing from the police and also Ms Fleming speaking to her application and addressing the matters raised by the police in terms of your legal powers here, if you're satisfied that a ground of refusal applies, then you must refuse the application. If you're not satisfied that a ground of refusal applies, then in law you must grant the application. The grounds for refusal are detailed at paragraph 4.3 of the report, and the first one being that having regard to the licence and objectives, the applicant is not a fit and proper person to be the holder of a premises licence, or that it's otherwise necessary to refuse the application for the purposes of any of the licence and objectives, those objectives being preventing crime and disorder, securing public safety, preventing public nuisance, protecting and improving public health, and protecting children and young persons from harm. So you're being asked to either grant or refuse an application for a personal licence in respect of Carol Fleming. So in terms of procedure, convener, I would suggest that you hear from the police, who can speak to the reports. Questions from members follow, then hear from Miss Carol Fleming to speak to her application and Miss Fleming to address the issues raised in the police report, and thereafter questions from members. Thereafter, allow the police to sum up their case, allow Carol Fleming to sum up her case, beg your pardon, and then you can go into session. It's just to advise, of course, that you do retain the specific legal power to deliberate the matter in private, and you do have that authority if you so wish. Thank you.
You're still on mute, Ivor.
Just goes to show that even I can get it wrong, eh? Sergeant McKee, would you like to take us through your objection, please? Or Chief Constable's objection.
Thank you, Convener. The objections in relation to an application for the grant of a personal licence by Carol Fleming. In terms of section 73(3)(b) of the Licence in Scotland Act 2005, I give notice that based upon the information provided, and as far as the Chief Constable is aware, the applicant has been convicted of the following relevant offence. On the 10th of the 3rd, 2021 at Dumfries Sheriff Court, the offence being a criminal licence in Scotland Act 2010, section 38(1), with an aggravator for a domestic and knife. The disposal was a community payback order with 12 months supervision. The circumstances of the incident are in the early hours of Sunday, the 3rd of January 2021. The applicant and their partner were within their home address consuming alcohol when they become involved in an argument over their children. Due to a recent course of conduct by shouting and swearing at her partner, he has gone into the bedroom and closed the door. After about 15 minutes, the applicant has forced her way into the room and taken her partner's mobile telephone before leaving again and going into another room in the property, the living room. Her partner remained within the bedroom, holding the door closed, although he could still hear her shouting and swearing, making threats to cut him if he didn't come out of the bedroom. Moments later, a blade from a knife came through the bedroom door, narrowly missing his head. Police were thereafter contacted and the applicant was arrested, however continued with her threatening and abusive behaviour and was being conveyed to Lobber Street Police Station by police. She was thereafter held in police custody and appeared at Dumfries Sheriff Court the next lawful day, which was Tuesday the 5th of January 2021. In terms of section 73(5) of the 2005 Act, the Chief Constable provides the following information in relation to the applicant, which is relevant to the board's consideration of the application. In light of the above circumstances, the Chief Constable considers it is necessary for the purpose of preventing crime and disorder and public nuisance that the applicant is refused due to her not being a fit and proper person and securing public safety. Thank you.
Right. And Ms Fleming, would you like to address the board, and then we'll have questions at the end?
Convener, do you want to, I just wondered if you want to give members an opportunity to ask the police any questions before Ms Fleming's given an opportunity to speak to her application. I just wondered, thank you.
Can do. Members, is there any questions for Sergeant McKee? Don't have any hands going up. That's sufficient time. Ms Fleming, would you like to address the board on your defence?
I agree with what the Sergeant says, apart from the knife. It wasn't a knife. I've tried to rehabilitate myself and make a better life for myself and my children, and I applied for the personal licence because of my job, and I have reported a drink driver and a elderly male who was buying alcohol and vapes for young children under the age of 16. I have reported things like that.
That's everything. Is there any questions for Ms Fleming? Councillor McKee?
Just what do you work at the present time, Ms Fleming?
Senior customer service and key holder at Scott Fresh, and it's a requirement for the job that I have a personal licence.
Thank you.
Councillor Murray?
I suppose, first of all, I'm interested in the information to the last question from Councillor McKee. Obviously, this is required to serve in a licensed premises like a shop, but not for serving in a bar, which I think does change things slightly. But I also wanted to ask Ms Fleming. She said that she had taken steps to rehabilitate herself, and I wondered if you could maybe say a bit more about what she's done. I mean, clearly this was an offence committed under the influence of alcohol, and I just wondered if you could say a little more about what she's tried to do, particularly in terms of excessive alcohol consumption or anger management and so on.
I have undertaken counselling for alcohol. I don't drink anymore at all, and I've been working with community service as well, because that was part of my order, and I was on a lot of medication from the doctor for my anxiety and depression from my childhood and what had happened to me, and the medication wasn't doing me any good, and the doctors agreed that it wasn't. So I'm now not on any medication, and I'm working full time and living by the law, really.
Thanks for that. Thank you.
Right, if there's no other questions, Sergeant McKee, would you like to sum up?
Thank you. During this incident, the applicant has shown a propensity for violent behaviour, especially while she's under the influence of alcohol. The fact that a knife was used during this incident shows that the applicant is not a fit and proper person to be the holder of my personal licence. Thank you.
And Miss Fleming, would you like to sum up?
No, that one.
Have you anything you'd like to add, Miss Fleming?
No.
Right. Over to members' deliberation. Do members wish to determine? Councillor Murray?
Yes, I hear what the police are saying. However, I think Ms. Fleming's made it clear that she has taken steps to address the problem, particularly that she had with taking alcohol alongside medication, which probably didn't mix terribly well with alcohol. She's telling us that she's not drinking at all now, and that she's done some work with community payback and so on about some of her problems. And personally, I tend to feel that you should give, people are trying, they do deserve another chance. It might be slightly different if she was working in a bar where there was a temptation to drink alcohol, and people might be buying alcohol for you and telling you to put it behind the bar and that sort of thing. But she's working in a shop, so she's selling alcohol to, at an off license. So I think the temptation there, which might surround alcohol, I don't think will be the same as if she was working in the bar. So my inclination would be to grant her the licence, irrespective of the views of the police, and give her that second chance to start again.
Councillor McKee?
Thanks, Chair. I'm going along the same lines as Elaine there, Councillor Murray. It's a 3-year licence, isn't it? What I'm thinking it's a 3-year licence. If that's the case, I would look at making it a 1-year licence. Then she can apply again after a year, and it's given her a chance to prove herself.
Convener, may I interject there?
Sorry.
Yes, Miss Traynor.
Sorry,
I was going to bring you
in. Forgive me. So, Councillor McKee, the personal licence has a 10-year shelf life. However, if you were minded to grant the licence, of course, that's a matter for yourselves as democratically elected members. It would the police, if they did have any issues, it could always be open to the police under Section 84A of the Act, that they could always bring to your attention if their view was that the personal licence holder was acting in a manner that was inconsistent with the licensing objectives. The police could bring this to yourselves again under Section 84A, but it is a 10-year licence.
Okay, sorry, Carla. Didn't
Not
realise
at all.
that.
Gosh,
Yeah.
not at all.
Thank you.
And I take it from that, Caroline, we aren't able to restrict that to in years. It is a 10, and that's it.
Correct,
Yeah.
Convener. No power to restrict.
Right. Councillor Lever?
Yeah, I would agree. I think the applicant has made genuine efforts to rehabilitate, so I would be inclined to grant the licence.
And Councillor Stitt?
After listening to everything, Convener, I'll be quite happy to grant the licence. And then just in following up what Caroline said, the police can always intervene whenever they want to see any problem.
With that, I think I'm similarly minded, and Ms Fleming, I think you have to realise that we are giving you a chance here. You've got a very responsible job in selling alcohol to the public, and we would hope that you actually take this into consideration in your actions in the future, that we have given you this chance, we're putting our trust in you, and hopefully that this will help you on your road, and you'll not stray off the path, shall we say, in the future. Ms Traynor, would you like to advise the decision I'm not sure if there's a time delay in this because there's an objection in, but you can advise that.
Okay, Ms Fleming, so you've just heard the board deliberate and the board have decided to grant your application for a personal licence, and our licensing team will be in touch with yourself in early course with regard to that confirmation and your licence. Is that clear?
Yes.
Thank you.
With that, I have no further business that has been notified to me. So can I thank you all for your attendance?
Thank you, Chair. Nice to see you again.
Convener.
Right, yeah.
Thank you.